Right, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us tonight live on The Bottom Line. On The Bottom Line, we say business at the speed of thought. My name is Kwesefri, and of course, we are coming your way live from our studios here at Rage in Accra. And tonight, we want to be talking about two major things. Of course, I'm sure you want to hear about the E-Levy. Today is the second day of implementation. We want to see how it's gone so far. We've heard a lot of stories from the streets about people who are doing huge withdrawals from their accounts, people who have stopped using mobile money, and people who are not using electronic transactions again. Did you receive a message from your bank alerting you on the charges that will be affected from henceforth if you transact any business electronically, and how have you taken that? There are still a lot of misunderstandings about the whole of the electronic transactions. Some people think it's about mobile money alone. What are the things that you would not have any deductions when you perform a transaction on? Yesterday, I had this kind of argument in church with one of my colleagues about a transaction that will not be deducted, which he thinks will be deducted, and so he is not going to go on to perform that. Tonight, we would have a specialist from the Ghana Revenue Authority to be talking to us and explaining some details about it to us. And so I'm sure if you have any question you want to put it up, our numbers will be scrolling on the screen. Put it up about the E-Levy and let's get answers. I was privileged to listen to him some time back, and I know that he has answers to every question that we have for you tonight. There is also the labor agitations, and you know about CLOSAG, you know about everything that's happened. And of course, today is the 2nd of May. Yesterday was May Day. The concerns of workers, we want to be hearing them tonight. So you want to stick and stay with us. When we come back, we do Labor Day, and then we move on swiftly to electronic levy. Stay with us. Well, you're welcome back from the break. Tonight, I've told you that we are discussing labor agitations. That is, of course, very brief. And then we'll come to E-Levy, what the transactions are so far. And I'm sure you'll be interested in that, the things we want to discuss tonight. So stick and stay with us. But we have the President, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, talking about salaries and wages. This is one of the biggest problems of workers in the country. Let's hear him when we come back. We'll talk about a few things and go ahead probably to ask about the allowances some of them are asking for. So let's listen to the President. We'll be right back.
Secretary General, I took note of the observations and recommendations you made in your address, especially of those on the challenges facing Ghanaian workers in particular and Ghanaians in general, for which I would like to make a few comments. It is important to put on record at the outset that when COVID-19 struck and public sector workers in some countries were either losing their jobs or getting reduced salaries, my government continued to pay the salaries of public sector workers without any reductions, and we ensured that no public sector worker lost his or her job. It cannot therefore be said that my government does not care about the plight of the Ghanaian worker. I've also acknowledged on several occasions that we are in difficult times, and government has not thrown its hands in despair, and it is not looking for the easy way out. On the contrary, we're working hard to address the current challenges facing the economy and those that relate to improve the quality of life for all Ghanaians. I will be the first to admit the conditions of service in the wider public service needs improvement. However, these should be done within budgetary constraints to ensure that we do not put excessive pressure on our public finances. Secretary General, in 2021, for example, government spent 31.7 billion cedis to pay for compensation of employees, that is, wages and salaries, pensions, gratuities, and social security. This was paid out of a tax revenue of 56.5 billion cedis. Thus, payment for 700,000 public sector employees alone absorbed 56% of tax revenues in 2021. This ratio is well above the ECOWAS threshold of 35% and above the sub-Saharan Africa average of 43%.
Right, so that's from the President, His Excellency, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And there are two major issues we want to discuss tonight. We all know about the numerous concerns of workers, both in the private sector and the public sector, which everyone needs government to address. But there are two key ones that we want to focus on tonight. And my guest here tonight is in the studio. Mr. Edward Karewe is a General Secretary, General Agricultural Workers Union, TUC, Ghana. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, good evening.
I hope I pronounced the name well.
Yeah, very well.
Right, thank you very much.
Well.
And of course, we'll have him. Some others join him live on Zoom. And Mr. Erickson Abaka is the Vice Chairperson, Employment, Social Welfare, and State Enterprises Committee of Parliament. Honorable, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
And then my very own boss, Mr. Austin Gami, Labor Consultant. Good evening, Chairman. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Good evening. You are welcome.
Thank you very much. And then now Ayeli is Adafiu Secretary, is officer in charge of PR campaigns of TUC Ghana. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us as well. Well, so let me begin with you, Mr. Edward Karewe. The President made an emphatic statement, and I want us to focus on that. He agrees that the conditions of workers needs to be improved. However, per the economic conditions, we cannot increase salaries. How are you taking that?
Well, let me say good evening to you. Many Ghanaians who are listening to us and watching us, particularly workers, and also salute them for a successful Workers' Day celebration yesterday. Well, there have been many aspects of the story of Ghana's economic fortunes or viability. Some say that the economy is broke. Some say that there's no money, and so on and so forth. For us, we don't think that the economy is broke. Ghana is not broke.
You don't think Ghana is broke?
We don't think that Ghana is broke. But even though Ghana is not broke, we are seeing a very serious problem when it comes to distribution of what we generate in this country. So if you take specifically on wages, you can find someone as low as 300, 400, 500, and you find some as high as 80,000 and so on. You know, the inequality in the wage distribution is so much a worry. So when we are talking about increasing wages, we are looking at those who are hardest hit by this economic situation, where they have no source of income apart from holiday wages. They have no allowances apart from holiday wages. In fact, it is an open secret that some employees' allowance alone is more than another worker's salary for the month. You know, all these things tells us that if we do proper redistribution, of course, we will be better off than we are. So to accept that nothing can be done about increasing workers' salaries, I think that is not really acceptable to us as workers. And we have already indicated that we are about negotiating for our 2023 wage increase. And we have given indication that we would like government to consider giving us an increment not less than inflation figure, which is 19.4%. And whilst we are
You
waiting,
want an increment of anything not less than 19.4%.
yes, inflation figure, and then because that will take time, we are saying that given the economic situation, we are even calling for what, a COLA, the cost of living allowance, to be given to the workers. So it will be very difficult to accept and agree with government that we won't have increment in salary, but we know that there must be increment, but the increment should not be below inflation figure.
Right, so let me go to Honorable Samuel Erickson Abaka. If you have heard Mr. Kariwa, he says that he doesn't think the country is broke, and so they want, even for next year, the increment to be at par with the inflation figure, which is around 19.4%. They don't want anything less. However, the president says this is hard to come by. Even for this year, salaries cannot be increased. How do you take that? Honorable, can you hear me? If you can hear me, kindly unmute and please do talk to us. Well, so let me quickly jump to Mr. Austin Gami, and let me still ask you the same question. You have been in the space for the number of years that we can all remember, and this is coming up from the president. One union says they don't agree that the country is broke, and they need more than, or at least something at par with the current inflation rates, around 19.4%. Are they right in their call?
Thank you. Greetings to my friend there and all the other panelists and your listeners. Look, let's be very real. Negotiation is not about taking position. The president saying that we cannot do anything, and they saying unless you give us this, it's not the issue. The issue is about going to the table, and all the books have to be open, as honest and as open as possible, so that having seen the numbers and having been convinced that the economic circumstance in which we find ourselves, this is what it is, then a decision will have to be made whether they will have access to the COLA plus the 19.4 or 20%, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, yes, they have to go to the table to go and negotiate, and it's not about taking position at any point in time. That's how it's supposed to be.
Right, but looking at the current economic conditions, I agree that government cannot take position. Would you say that it's right for government to think that under the circumstances, we are not in the position to be able to increase salaries?
Well, they must convince, under the Labor Act, Section 113, subsection C, there is a room for them to go and discuss the importance of the national economy and the social well-being of the working people, and even those who are not working, it still have effect on them. So if they go to the National Tripartite Committee, which is legitimately legal, then both parties will be open to the numbers that are there. They can ask and interrogate the numbers and be sure that there is nothing under. Once they are convinced, the numbers will turn out by itself. It could be 1%, it could be 2%. The consequences of paying the 19.4% and the consequences of paying COLA and its effect on the overall economy, they will have to discuss it and come to terms with the reality. If the government cannot afford to pay, what else would they do? If the workers will not have access to that, what else will be open to them? It is going to be an open conversation, not agreement, not debate. Well, if you go and debate, somebody will have to win, somebody will lose. And this is not about losing or winning.
Mr. Gami, just before I let you go, I'll come back to you at least one last time before I let you go. But Just before I do that, let me ask you this. One of the reasons the president gave is that during the hardships, the peak of the hardships, when other countries were relieving some of their public service workers, this government held on, made sure nobody had to go home. They were held up, and so they cannot now make that demand.
That is a position he's taking, and the union knows better. They know how to negotiate. If other countries, and even in Ghana here, people have to go off, people were not being paid at all, and you think that it was fair because the economy was good enough to pay the people who were in government service, that is choice. It's choice. It may be a good choice, it may be a bad choice, whichever way it is, that is what you choose to do. There's nothing wrong with that. So when you go to table, explain with the numbers, with the statistics as to why you did what you did, what was the level of consultation, and so forth and so on. And the people at the table should be able to come to terms as to why they cannot get any additional income or why they can get something else. It's up to him to decide.
Right. Thank you. Let me go to Honorable Erickson Abaka quickly before I come back to you, then I can take leave of you. Honorable, thank you very much for joining us. I acknowledge that early on your mic was giving you some problems. We are asking that the president says, due to the economic hardships and the problems the country has gone through, government is not able to increase salaries of workers. And we have Mr. Karewe here saying that even for next year, they are looking for at least 19.4% minimum wage.
Thank you. And then the president has said it all, having taken cognizance of prevailing conditions in the economy. And this is a global issue. We are not an island. You would agree with us that the government has shown very good faith with the people of Ghana, in spite of the pandemic, which plunged many economies into deep crisis. The president is able to pilot us through maintaining wages and salaries and ensuring that extra expenses were incurred. The president has looked at the economy. The economy is picking up, and 2023, though not far off, there's still, we have about 6-7 months to go. And whatever labor takes as wages or salary depend mostly on productivity. And worldwide, it is a known fact that government employ about 10% of the workforce, and that is 90% of the workforce are private employees. So I know as a fact that in various conferences and meetings, when the tripartite committees meet, when the casts are laid bare, we would reach a consensus which would help each other to articulate his or her somewhere. And when it's an open discussion, whatever outcome that will be acceptable, that will ensure that we do not cripple the economy further. I think the president, from the current state of affairs, should be commended for paying workers for at the time when they were not even going to work.
Right. So I'll come back to the studio pretty shortly, but let me ask you my final question so I can let you go. Neutrality allowance. As a committee, have you looked at it yet?
Neutrality, I think it's a new term that has just resurfaced in the Ghanaian economy. It may be a misnomer, but all the same, in a way, when there are hardships and the waste of commemorating the hardships, technology does not matter much. But strictly speaking, if you say you are entitled to, or there should be a neutrality allowance, I think it's a misnomer because the work that you have undertaken to do, I mean, part of the conditions include the fact that you remain neutral. So your emolument is tied with, I mean, it's a whole package, a complete package, because you have decided to work in the public service. I mean, it is part of the code of conduct that you do not engage in fraud. You remain neutral.
Exactly the point. Let me run to Mr. Austin Gummy, and so that I can allow you to take leave of us. Mr. Gummy, I'm sure I would want to listen to you on this. Is it a deserved call by workers in the public sector to call for a neutrality allowance?
Thank you. I'm not too sure it's a call from the workers. It was both parties that met, if no less a person than my friend and a notable person like the Honorable Osafo Mafo, leading government delegation to the negotiation table and agreed with them that they were going to pay neutrality allowance, and there is no evidence that they were forced into it. Clearly, we cannot say it's a call from the workers. The public service deserves a legitimate payment of allowances or base pay increase. How it should be done is subject to negotiation, and normally when it's been agreed to by both parties, then payment becomes a matter of course. So by the jargon or the nomenclature that was used, neutrality allowance, first of all, there is the word neutrality is only properly used in language. I'm speaking like a mediator. So it's used in a mediating approach. Even that is for only language. But human being, you cannot be neutral, you can only be impartial. The public service, as was said by my other colleague, by nature, they are apolitical. So if what they should be doing would have been to go for a reevaluation of their jobs so that they can pay them well-deserved base pay, so that their pension will be enhanced, their social security will be enhanced, and so forth and so on. Not necessarily neutrality allowance. Good. If it's a question about cushioning, it's a question of cushioning. I think that all of them have shifted now to COLA, which some of us have highlighted strongly. Right. That should be the way out. That I will support anytime they call for it.
Right. Thank you very much. Mr. Austin Gummy is a labor consultant, and he's been with us explaining some of these things or answering some of these questions to us. And Mr. Samuel Erickson Abaka is also the chairman, I want to see this, the vice chairperson of Employment, Social Welfare and State Enterprises Committee of Parliament. I'll hold my brief here because I'm still with Mr. Edward Caraway here in the studio, and he would have answers for all the things, the concerns that have come up from the Member of Parliament and Mr. Austin Gummy. But he will be joining the discussion on E-Levy. So I'll quickly, kindly allow me your indulgence. Let me go on a quick break. When we come back with E-Levy. You pass your comments and then we get on to E-Levy. So stick and stay with us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back from the break. This is the Bottom Line. On the Bottom Line, we say business at the speed of thought. I told you earlier on that I still have Mr. Edward Caraway here in the studio, and I've been joined by a very lead person. The first time I met him, I actually thought he was the team lead for the E-Levy. So when we were trying to bring him to the studio, my point was that everybody can now attack him, the person behind the whole of the E-Levy policy and its implementation and so on and so forth. But I have the singular honor to introduce to you a member of the E-Levy Technical Committee and head of GRE Project Management Unit. Mr. Isaac Kobna Amwako is here in the studio tonight. Good evening. Thank you very much. I hope you're doing well.
I'm doing great.
I'm wondering the way you have done your face. I have seen that you are behind the E-Levy. you are GRE and you are behind the E-Levy. So all the questions we have for you tonight would come up, and I'm sure I will even give Mr. Karaway the very first question. However, we were on the topic of May Day celebrations and the concerns, and about the neutrality allowance. I would allow you that comment, then we come straight to E-Levy.
Well, as it has been noted, workers deserve support around this time of their lives in Ghana. How that is done is another thing. But what is much enduring is to raise their basic salary. And when the basic salary goes up, it inures to the worker in terms of contribution to Social Security and so on. Allowances come in where the employer thinks that it should not be factored into their basic, So the allowance that government has agreed with some section of the public sector workers, unfortunately, we were not there, but they came out and said it is neutrality allowance. And that actually creates the problem.
You don't like the name?
No, the name itself is not, it has been factored into our constitution and says that they have to be neutral. So why do you pay somebody to remain neutral when the constitution says that person should be neutral? It becomes ridiculous. And then unfortunately, it is government that came out to justify it. And again, government has not denied that, they have not agreed to it. The only problem of government is that they have not been able to pay it for now, and that the workers should have had patience for them because they are having difficulties paying it for now, so they shouldn't go on the strike. But government has never denied that they have not come into an agreement with them, and they do not say they will not pay. So we are now saying that, well, all public sector workers are enjoined to be neutral of partisan politics in the discharge of their duties. So if you think it is good for a section of the public sector workers to enjoy this allowance, then it is also good for the rest of the public sector workers to enjoy it, because all of them have the responsibility of remaining what? Neutral.
I have a difficulty with that, but briefly, I understand that we have Na Ayeli Adefio Seche. Na is on Zoom. She's the officer in charge of PR and campaigns of TUC. Now, let me ask you, what's the justification for us to pay you neutrality allowance? I have a difficulty. I understand it. Mr. Isaac here works for government, is making sure that there is money in the coffers of the country to support or buttress the whole of the economy. He can't do politics. He's not asking for neutrality allowance. Now, why should we pay you neutrality allowance? Please, kindly unmute. Now, if you can hear me, kindly unmute your mic and let's listen to you. Unfortunately, we are having difficulties getting. Na is with TUC. She's the PR manager of TUC. We had wanted there to also do the justification as Mr. Karaway is doing. But I think we'll bring it. Or you want to?
No. But when you say you don't agree with me, are you saying that it should not be extended? One, it's an agreement. Two, time is due for it to be paid. Government is unable to pay, but they say they will pay. Three, I'm saying that if it is good for the goose, it should be good for the gander.
But that's the problem with the general public, that why should they be good for the goose even in the first place, and then now good for the gander?
I am saying that, even I made the point clear that I don't see the need for it because it's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Because the Constitution already says that.
So you should be fighting for its cancellation, not because it's good for the goose, it has to be good for the gander.
Look, here, I don't think there's been an infringement on the Constitution.
You have made there's no breach. It is ridiculous. Yes, we all agree that it is ridiculous.
So if it is ridiculous, and government has money,
it is ridiculous.
And government has money.
You think government has money?
Of course, this is the actions of government that portrays that, earlier said the government is not broke. And I'm saying they are not broke because there is money in this country, but it's about the distribution.
The allocation of
it. So when government thinks that it is important for them to pay neutrality allowance to a section of its workers, then the message government is sending to the other section of the workers is that they should also rise up for it.
You are joining because there has been some sort of agreement.
Yes, there's an agreement.
With some worker unions.
Yes.
Let me cut that. Do we have money in the country? Do we have money in our coffers? GRE, Ghana Radio. Or you may not be able to answer that.
I won't be able to.
You are a technical person focusing on E-Levy. But E-Levy started 2 days ago, yesterday, the 1st of May. I mean, there was a lot of hue and cry about it, the implementation. I came to a workshop where you had piloted bits of it, and it was going well, or you were going to go on with it, whatever the case may be from yesterday. I want to be asking you, what is the progress so far? But we have a quick video from some Ghanaians, some of who have used the system from yesterday. In 1 or 2 minutes, we'll play that, then we come back to you. Okay.
Mobile money, may you want free. Messi, Missika, or them.
E-Levy Shishano, Ghana for the new home. Oh, my money, then the E-Levy as I go for to say, what the taxes are to mobile money. So I won't say what my anymore.
Just a nipple or mobile transaction or Ghana Hano. If you cry robbery, semi how. Kakra na omo yan kra akronfo etu so omo so na omo wiawo na omo kuan na ade hash po omo fam na too much nti media ni say mesra ban ni say sanke be yanko ohun omo bo na nka E-Levy no onfa ncha won na onyi fi wona omo ye omo edwuma kakra
E-Levy ni de enka eye tax indirect tax ya abano oji enipa bia na emu sikana ogie no eso every say yene ye wo ha nyina no sa wo hwa aban adwuma ye fo nko an tua tax yene ye ntua tax no almost 70%. Adenti na ye ntua tax every say yene ye nya adwuma ne dey e do so pa.
Right, so that's different views from the section of the public. Do you receive that a lot? Some of these explanations, people who are saying we will not do anything electronic again, and people who are saying we think it's something novel, let's support it, but maybe the communication hasn't gone on well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we do receive such comments from the public about some say that, especially for the formal workers, that they've already been taxed before they get their salaries. Then you are coming to tax it again with the E-Levy, so it's double taxation. Normally, I answer them this way that, okay, just go and withdraw your money and have it in cash. Walk to any of the malls. Try to buy any item over there. Would they exempt you from the price of the items because your money had been taxed already? No. Whether cash or electronic, when you walk to any shop, if there is additional taxes on those products, we don't deduct them before. So why are you making that kind of case right now that for E-Levy it should be different? So normally that is my reaction. But I share the sentiment of the last contributor that about 70% in the informal sector are not contributing to direct tax. So we have direct tax, we have indirect tax. Now for the direct tax, that is for those of us on the payroll, either of government or of our private employer. Before you receive your money, your pay, it is already deducted. And it is very huge per month. You multiply that by 12, and that is the amount of money you are paying every year to the state. Now you watch your neighbor who probably works in the informal sector, including artisans. Some take maybe tiling or cement work. Some take 5,000 and over, and they are not taxed directly.
They earn more than we, the official workers. That one I can confidently support.
So the question is that, why have we left the large chunk of people who have not been taxed out? And those of us who are being taxed are making case for them not to be taxed again. If you do the mathematics, just about 2 million or so Ghanaians support 30 million. You have about 8 million who are active. and they are earning some form of income. So if you look at the way the E-Levy had been structured, for what we call merchant payments, if the merchant or the seller who is using these online platforms is trading and he's not registered with the Ghana Revenue Authority, then the E-Levy is making him uncompetitive on the platform because anyone who purchases from him on the platform would be imposed the E-Levy. It is to bring some kind of a burden on the customer so that the customer will think twice. I could have gotten this item cheaper just for the person being registered with the Ghana Revenue Authority. So
what does that mean? Does that mean that if the merchant is registered with the Ghana Revenue Authority? I had this conversation in my introduction with somebody in my church yesterday, that if you are registered as a merchant with the Ghana Revenue Authority and I make payments to you, probably you are selling food or whatever it is online, and I make payments to you so that you do delivery into my house, am I not going to pay the E-Levy or pay but will not pay double? How is it like?
You won't pay the E-Levy at all.
If you are registered as a merchant.
If the merchant, you know the telcos have something called merchant
account.
Good.
Yes.
Now, you need to have the merchant account first. And currently, if people are on merchant and you purchase, they don't pass on the transaction fee to you.
Exactly.
So if that person has taken advantage of that arrangement and become a merchant, the law now imposes an additional requirement that he should come to GRA and regularize as a taxpayer in addition to what he's done with the telcos.
Exactly.
Once he does that, anyone who purchases from him online is not imposed the E-Levy.
But people haven't heard this. People don't know this. What all that we think is that once I use electronic transaction, I'm going to pay E-Levy.
It's part of the six big exemptions that the Act has brought to us.
Number one, if you are a merchant registered with GRA, and I send you, I am not going to pay the E-Levy. So all merchants should go to GRA and register. Is that what you're saying?
That is all.
Number two exemption. So first one, I'm writing down. Merchants with GRA. What's number two?
Number two is that every day you are given an exemption of 100 Ghana cedis cumulative transfer.
I asked a question the last time I met you, I think at Alisa or so. And if I have 4 or 5 different accounts and I'm transferring to my family members, all of who are depending on me, it means that every 200 cedis that I sent, I'm going to pay on each of the 200 cedis. Can you take me through?
So there's an exemption to you in your person as Isaac.
Right.
For the day. It doesn't matter the number of SIMs I own. All put together, I have 100. In fact, that is the more reason why we need a system to do that adjudication for us, called the common platform.
Okay.
So every day, the law grants you 100 Ghana exemption for your transfers.
Yes.
So if all you are doing is 100 Ghana cedis every day, you end up paying no E-Levy.
If I'm supposed to send 1,000, I can decide to send 100 cedis every day for 10 days, and then I don't pay E-Levy.
And you don't pay E-Levy, yes.
But if I'm sending 100 Ghana from my Stanbic account and 100 Ghana from maybe my GT account, I'm going to pay on each of them. 101, I'm going to pay on each of them.
No, the 100 is not what you're paying. The 100 is rather what we are forgiving you. So it's not about what you're paying. We are giving you 100 for the entire day.
So the question now is, if I send through Stanbic,
yes,
and then I need to send another money, so that's the next 100. I'm sending only 100.
The next 100 will be taxed.
The next 100 will be taxed, yes, whether it is still a Stanbic or still
whichever platform, the next 100 gets taxed.
But the exemption is 100 cedis per day. What is the third exemption?
The third is that if you transfer to yourself, you don't get to pay the E-Levy. So you move money from your mobile money wallet to your bank account, you don't pay E-Levy. If you move from your bank account to your Momo, you don't pay E-Levy.
How are you able to tell that this? Are you having any relationship with the banks, or you are using, for example, Ghana card, or how is it like if I'm transferring money from my maybe ADB account to my mobile money wallet, so I'm able to work with it? How do you know?
So each of your accounts have to have an identity behind it, and the identity for now is the Ghana card. So that is why the NCA has taxed the SIM card re-registration exercise to commence, and it's ongoing. So if you've taken advantage and you've updated your SIM with your Ghana card, as well as your bank account with your Ghana card, the identity becomes the same, Ghana card, and the system.
That burden has to be GREs. You need to be able to synchronize the data and know that this account belongs to me, or that's not.
It doesn't have to be GRE. I mean, it is your civic duty to update your records with any entity that you transact with, not GRE. If you don't furnish the entity with your details, how would GRE force you? You've gone to your bank, you've never provided your Ghana card. GRE can't know about that.
But that's a stance. All the accounts that I have were using the Electoral Commission's card. Some haven't yet accepted the Ghana card. How are you able to tell that these accounts are mine?
They will not enjoy the exemption then.
Then the problem is now being caused by the banks.
No, it's not being
because some of them are still taking.
The Bank of Ghana have given them a deadline.
And when would that happen? E-Levy has started already.
So those, I mean, the early, how do you say it? The early bird catches the worm or something.
So you are forcing us to go and update our.
Update.
What is your that's number 3. What's your fourth?
3. The fourth one is the specified merchant payment. Oh, you've noted that already.
Yes, I've done the merchant payment.
So the fourth one is paying of taxes, fees, and charges on the Ghana.gov platform.
Okay.
So buying your passport, paying your the business registration document at the assemblies, any of those services that are done on the Ghana.gov platform, you don't get to pay the E-Levy.
Because every entity on the Ghana.gov platform is registered with the GRE.
It's a government agency, so you don't get to pay.
Right, and then your number 5?
The number 5 is what we call principal transfers between principal, master agent, and agent. This is the ecosystem of the agents who do the vending for mobile money. If they are moving money within their ecosystem, they don't get
so that they can continue doing their business.
They would have their capital intact. So that it's not every transaction then we impose E-Levy. So their capital stays intact. So that we don't disturb that ecosystem of mobile agents. So that is the next.
Right, and your last one before I ask my 2 more questions, and then I'll ask Mr. Karewe to go.
Is that if you write a check and the check gets cleared, you don't pay E-Levy.
Someone sent a question that, do you know about the cash out? I think that's listed somewhere here. Instead of making a transfer, I can call the person who is to receive the money at the other end and use the details to cash out the money.
So that would be
without paying the E-Levy.
That would be illegal. Because with the current arrangement by the telcos, you are supposed to be present with your agent when you are doing the cash out. So, and technologically, it is feasible to know that you are not present. Geotagging. I mean, whatever transaction you do, it will pass through a mast. And the mast has been geotagged. So there's a mast registered as Sakumono. And then the receiving mast is in Tamale. Automatically, those geolocations.
That's a complex system. Do you have it with these mobile money agents, or I mean, for want of better words, electronic agents, not just the banks?
It is available as we speak, except that it's not been activated. But I'm giving you that the technology exists. That if we want to implement or prevent that from happening, it is possible.
But as it is now, that illegality will persist.
We are aware of it.
And how are you going to do that? Are you pushing the telecommunications?
For now, we would want to see the data, and then the data will inform the decision that we take.
Between yesterday and now, have you seen an increment in transactions or a reduction?
At this time, government is not having visibility to the telcos because we've not, the charging entities have not connected to our common platform. They will do so in July. So we've issued out a new notice called the modified phase approach. In the modified phase approach, each of the charging entity is supposed to run their system independently of each other. In fact, that is the more reason why some people were charged yesterday when they were not supposed to be charged.
I was going to come to that. Kindly go ahead and explain that.
It is part of our simulation. We are aware that that is going to happen because for phase 1 or this phase, the charging entities are independent of each other. So anytime they do a transfer from their network to another network, they would not know what is happening there. And for that matter, you'll be charged. But we've then provided guidelines for reversals or refunds. So you need to then lodge a complaint to your telco that the other receiving end is yourself. Provide your details, that's any national ID, and then the transaction details, and the telco is required after investigation to refund your money back.
I am particularly interested in the exemptions, and that's where he's giving us 6 good exemptions. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to be asking all the questions, and I'm sure if he allows us, we'll bring him back for the full hour to go into the details of this whole project, especially when it has gone on for maybe a week or 2 or a month. Before I come to you, there is a question that's coming in here. It says, we were thinking of 1.75 and now 1.5. It started on 1st May. So by the end of the year, can he tell us how much we are supposed to rope in? I'm interested in the roads, the schools, and the things they say the projects are going in. So how much money are we making to send into these projects?
Those would be policy questions. It wouldn't be on my side.
But you have the data, so you should be able to tell us.
I don't have the
project data. And tell us the number of people, because you are expanding the tax net.
Yeah,
you are projecting how many people are going to be roped into payment of these taxes. And by that, we are to know how much we are supposed to get by the end of the year.
I don't have this data.
You don't have that data. Yours is to make sure that the system is running effectively. Kindly go on, Chief.
Yeah. First and foremost, what we have been agitating and advocating for the expansion of the tax net. We do agree that a few people pay the tax, and we, those who are in the formal sector as workers, we pay taxes regularly. So the expansion of the tax net is a good thing. But you see, when you expand, you don't overburden the person who is already paying. So this type of expansion, which one of the guys said that they were not paying taxes, or there were some people who were not paying taxes. Now with the E-Levy, they will pay taxes. They will pay those taxes. And we, those who were already paying taxes, will also continue to pay as much as they do. So you see, tax burden is not well distributed, even with the inclusion or with the advent of the E-Levy. So we, those who are already paying taxes, we are overburdened. That's our observation. Now, the other thing too is, if I hear him, whether right, that those who are merchants and have registered with GRA, when you purchase from them, you, the one who pays through the electronic means, will not be charged. Is that the case?
That's the case.
So if most of our businesses, super malls and all those things, go to register as agents with GRA, does that mean that all the people who are coming to buy from them, when they pay, they are not going to?
From my understanding, previously and now, if I'm getting him, once you are a business,
yes,
and you register, and all of these businesses, whether at the malls or food vendors or wherever they are, they register with it, for example, MTN, Vodafone, or whatsoever, as merchants. And so you pay to them as merchants. When you go to Country Kitchen and you want to use the mobile money service, you pay as a merchant. Now they are saying Country Kitchen should come to them and register as a taxpayer. When Country Kitchen registers as a taxpayer, you can pay to Country Kitchen without a tax.
Very
Is
good.
that the case?
That's the case.
Very good. I think that clarity is good for all of us.
That
Then
is what we
know
want people to know. That is why he's here.
Now, the thing is, today, I have both Vodafone cash and then MTN cash, Momo. Now, I transferred 150 Ghana cedis to someone who has a Vodafone number, So I transferred from my MTN, 150 Ghana. I paid 3 cedis, 75 pesos.
That's the mathematician here. So
as charges.
Yes.
Now, when I use my Vodacash to pay that same person for 350, they charge me 3 cedis, 75 pesos.
So you have to calculate it from the point of view of which charging entity you're moving from. His original first scenario is that he moved it from MTN to a Vodafone.
That's an
interoperability.
Yes, interoperability.
There is an interoperability fee the MTN would impose as fixed. It was there before E-Levy. So that amount will stay. Now we are having a technical challenge from yesterday from MTN in particular.
Okay.
Off net or transfers outside of MTN,
yes,
which are below the 100 Ghana threshold, are still being taxed.
Okay.
When they are not supposed to.
Okay.
So that is a technical hitch.
That's one of the questions I've just received. Somebody says, good evening, please. If I decide to send 150 cedis from my MTN number to a Vodafone number, will I still pay the 1.5 on the extra 50 cedis or on the 150 cedis?
It's supposed to be on the extra 50.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, you have a problem. Are you resolving it now?
Yes,
with
it's
MTN?
being resolved with MTN, yeah.
Are they going to refund?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Please, kindly go on.
No, I think that is great. So it means that I expect a refund.
Yes.
And I'll monitor that.
Yes.
No, because you see,
That's good. Very important.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
important.
I'll monitor that.
Yeah.
And we are also asking, GRA, when you take this money, will this money actually fall into the consolidated fund, or when it is the consolidated fund, it will be moved to a special fund? So
This
that
question was asked
we
him
know.
at our last meeting. He said he couldn't answer that. That's a matter of
No,
policy.
I was able to answer that. Our mandate is to collect and dump it into the consolidated
Okay.
fund. Once it hits
What
consolidated,
it is
our work
used for
our work is done.
Okay.
Once it hits consolidated, our work is done.
Because we asked him whether what type of roads is going to, for example, with Cocoa Board, we know Cocoa roads. And
Yes.
so we were asking whether they were going to be E-Levy roads or E-Levy schools, so that we know that these are the specific projects. But you told us. I don't know whether you can still say that.
No,
now.
that one
you
is
don't. You have
beyond-
no control over.
We don't have
how
control.
the money is
It-
used.
It's not part
But
of
for
our mandate.
accountability purposes, we should be able to come to you and ask
No,
whether
can't.
you have also been able to
You
track.
should to account for me to account. You go
Yes.
by the act that set me up.
My time is up, but kindly give me 30 seconds. Producer, let me read a few messages if I can and see whether he can round up with that. Okay, 1 minute. Thank you very much. This one has been read already, but GCB sent text saying it includes sending from bank to wallet. I need clarity. I don't know whether your own money from your own bank account to your own wallet. He would speak to that. Dear DA, we wish to notify you that the E-Levy charge takes effect from Sunday, 1st of May 2022. Kindly note that the E-Levy applies to electronic money transfers, including wallet to wallet and bank to wallet transactions. Kindly visit absa.com.gh to learn more. This is a message from Absa to a customer. So please kindly speak to that as well. And then your man just said, okay, that is answered. Good evening and thanks a lot for the enlightenment program. May you please ask whether ATM transactions also attract E-Levy? Also, can they publicize the daily income of money accrued from E-Levy for it to look more transparent? Good evening, please. If I borrow money from my mobile money, MTN mobile money, will I be paying tax? Hamza, Dabongo, or Dagbondu from Tamale. Too many messages coming up, but kindly allow me. I'll gather all the messages and the texts that are coming, and we'll get him to answer them. Probably we'll be scrolling the answers in our subsequent episodes. The few ones that I've read, 30 seconds, and then we can close.
Withdrawals from ATM,
Yes.
you don't have to pay the E-Levy. Cash in, that is putting money onto your wallet, you don't have to pay the E-Levy. Cash out, which is also a form of withdrawal, you don't have to pay the E-Levy. So these are transactions that you don't pay the.
Thank you very much. Mr. Isaac Kobna Amwakon is a member of E-Levy Technical Committee, head of GRE Project Management Team. He joined us tonight explaining the exemptions, particularly those are the things almost all of us are interested in, the exemptions from E-Levy. Mr. Edward Karaway is the General Secretary, General Agricultural Workers Union, TUC. He spoke about neutrality allowance and, of course, also about E-Levy. My name is Kwesi Afriyie. Thank you very much, Mr. Austin Gami and Mr. Samuel Erickson Abaka as well for joining us. Unfortunately, we couldn't pick Na Ayeli as Adefiu Secretary, who is with the TUC because of technical reasons. But thank you very much all for joining us, and thank you very much for watching. Good night.